I'm here with Brendan Gall, writer-in-residence at the Tarragon Theatre. How does that experience differ creatively from sitting at home in front of your keyboard without a snazzy title?
Without a snazzy title?
Yeah.
You have an office that I don't have in my snazzy home, and with Wide Awake Hearts, I had some grant money that was afforded me through the residency. That was a Canada Arts Council grant that I was able to apply for and got. So financially, you have sort of financial pressures removed a little bit, so that you can concentrate a little better and not have to be doing something else like working in a bookstore. And you have Tarragon's support, in my case, so that you have the ear of sort of all the creative folks there, like Richard Rose and Andrew Romaldi, and you have their resources. So we had a couple of readings along the way to sort of to get a feel for certain drafts, and ultimately found some actors for the production through that. So for me, it's just a greater feling of support behind you to write. You're not so much on an island.
Do you find that it's encouraged that it's less of a solitary process, or do they simply kind of let you know that they're there when you need them?
Yeah, it's definitely still a solitary process. Like they're not holding your hand throughout, but you know that they're there if and when you need them. And at times also putting some pressure on you to get drafts delivered, which is also a very useful thing for me anyways, and I suspect for most writers, because I find it very difficult to adhere to self-imposed deadlines that don't have actual consequences. So it's good to have sort of like, here is the day that this has to be delivered, to just sort of light a fire under me. But yeah, it is still very lonely.
Your latest work, which you just mentioned, Wide Awake Hearts, is set in the world of film production. Can you give us a basic premise of your story?
Yeah, I mean, without giving too much away, I mean, there is, I guess, an element of mystery to it. But it's about 4 characters, 3 of which are old friends, dating back to film school. And it's a few years ahead now, and it focuses on a writer-producer who's become quite successful at an early age, and his wife, who's an actress, who he met in film school. And their old friend, his best friend, who you get the sense they have a long and intimate sort of shared history. The friend subsequently moved away in the last few years, and this writer-producer is bringing him back to star in a film he's written. He casts his best and oldest friend and his wife in a film about an affair. And to complicate things further, I'm not going to be specific, but a 4th character comes along at some point to kind of complicate things further.
There are lots of plays about theater, lots of movies about theater, lots of movies about movies, but very few plays about movies. What was appealing about that underrepresented combination of medium and subject matter that appealed to you?
Well, I mean, just that, not just that, but that was a big part of it. Was I when I started to kind of look around for the film thing came second. I didn't want to make a play about movies. I wanted to make a play about people and about relationships, and I was looking for an environment for that to happen against or around or in, and I came to the film world pretty quickly. And yeah, I think I just was curious about that sort of one-way street feeling of theater does get the film treatment quite a bit, and film almost never gets the theater treatment. And I think I was curious just about what theater could reveal about film in a way, what you could do theatrically to explore the world of film. And I think a side of film in terms of film process and creation that an audience doesn't normally get to see or necessarily care about. You certainly don't need to know about it to appreciate a movie, and it's probably better not to know about it in some ways. But I think there are very interesting things about the way that films get made, and the kind of people that have to work on them, and how crazily collaborative they are, So, and just in terms of dealing with truth and fiction, I felt like the film world was also a good place to sort of get my characters lost in.
The film industry is often represented as a intensely cynical and often hedonistic kind of microcosm.
Yeah.
Wide Awake Hearts certainly supports that more than it challenges it.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a truthful depiction, or if not, why do you think it's so prevalent?
Well, I think it's very easy. In my limited experience in it, I feel like there are a lot of people who have gotten beaten down by the industry in some way or another. Even people who are quite successful, I think, have discovered that there's no shortage of compromises made along that road. And often, actually, the people who are most successful, I think, have probably made the most compromises or have strayed the furthest from their original intentions in the interest of being successful. And then conversely, I think the people who have refused to compromise can also get quite embittered because they are maybe financially not as comfortable as they would like to be, or not as recognized as they would like to be. So there's this sort of dual struggle, I think, that people are kind of sort of oscillating between, or vacillating between, one of those words. Anyway, so yeah, to that end, I think there is a great deal of truth in it. Not to say that there aren't intensely happy people working in the film industry, but I think it's a tough business. Yeah. The dialogue in Wide Awake Hearts really stands out for its rat-a-tat quality. That's fairly reminiscent of like 1940s film noir or movies like His Girl Friday, or that kind of thing. Tell me about the process of creating and refining your dialogue. Well, I write pretty intuitively. In the case of this play, I was quite rigid about the structure that I set out beforehand, in terms of a scene structure and a character combination structure, and had a sense of where I was going. But within each scene, I write pretty intuitively, sort of based from a place of character. So I think, I didn't go to school for writing, I went to school for acting, and I think I approach writing as an actor on a fundamental level. So I try to just put myself inside the characters and try to get into the rhythm of that language. And in this case, it's a play about relationships and about love, and I get kind of itchy thinking about a play where people talk about their feelings quite comfortably throughout, and I don't think that's very representative of most of us anyway. So I think, when love is concerned and when true deep feelings are concerned, often we put our armor up. So I have a kind of a love or fascination with that sort of noir world and that rat-a-tat world, and I thought it lent itself quite well to a play about love and about fidelity or a lack thereof, in terms of a way of getting through that kind of heartache and difficulty.
You just touched on this. Besides being an accomplished playwright, you're also a working actor, currently starring in CBC's Men with Brooms. In the theater world, wearing multiple hats is anything but uncommon. Even your sound designer, Mike Ross, I've seen on stage a few times.
Yeah.
What is it about theater that attracts or perhaps generates such multidisciplinary artists?
I think generates is probably closer to it. I think, especially, or certainly in this country, I'm sure there are other countries where this is true, but you find yourself wanting for work if you only have one hat. If the more hats you have, the more chance you have of getting to wear one of them on any given day. So I have friends. William Goldman, I think, the screenwriter, calls them hyphenates. People, the hyphenates, the writer-actor, the actor-director, the director-sound designer, whatever you are. And it's very common. I think it's common in film too, but yeah, in theater especially. First of all, because theater is a poor art form. You can do theater anywhere that you're creative enough to think of it. You can do it in your backyard. You can do it in an alley. You can do it in a warehouse. But in those situations, usually your resources are extremely limited. So you don't have the luxury of an infinite number of collaborators like you do in a large scale film or television project. You have to know how to do a number of things. So I think it's part of that, and I think it's just a mercenary truth that you got to diversify. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting around or working in retail.
You had one of your other works, Alias Godot, produced, I believe it was part of an Italian culture festival or theater festival. In Europe, theater places more emphasis on the director as the central creative character, and in North America, it's still very much the playwright's domain. What do you think the advantages or disadvantages of either model are, and do you think either one is more valid than another?
Well, I don't think there's one that's more valid than another, and I don't know if there's one that's more correct than another, but there are interesting differences, I guess. Certainly, Tarragon Theatre really, I think, makes no bones about being a writer-centric theatre. They consider themselves sort of one of the foremost supporters of new Canadian theatrical works, and a place where those works are created and fostered. I haven't had enough experience in Europe. Certainly, I had one experience as a writer in Europe to really know what that difference is. But they talk about it in film a lot as well. This notion of the auteur, the notion of the director being the person that is responsible for this creation. And I get suspicious of anything where one person is given too much credit, because these are such intensely collaborative mediums. We're not writing novels, we're not painting portraits or painting landscapes, where you absolutely need everyone involved. Otherwise, that person would not be involved. And so I think they're both probably faulty views or approaches in a way. I think it's a collaboration. You have to trust your collaborators. Absolutely, you need bosses, but it's a mistake to think that any one person can be held responsible or given credit.
You, Hannah Moscovich, and Michael Healy enter a barbed wire cage match. Who comes out alive?
Hannah Moscovich, I think. She's small, but she's wiry. I would never want to fight Hannah Moscovich. I don't know enough about Michael Healy. I feel like I'm dead. I'm dead in that cage match. Hopefully I live to write about it.
Fair enough. What's next for you?
Well, right now I'm rehearsing I guess it's a play. It's not really a play. A performance at the Theatre Centre called 300 Tapes, with myself, Joe Coblin, and Frank Cox O'Connell are in it. Amy Henderson, choreographer extraordinaire from Public Recordings, is at the helm, along with Bobby Theodore, who's a playwright, translator, and now television writer. And we're sort of deals with, I guess, the choreography of the everyday and autobiographical storytelling in sort of anecdotal form. And we're playing with identity and story and I guess trying to find a common ground between rehearsed movement and storytelling, and off the cuff or spontaneous action and word.
Great, thanks for your time.
Thank you.